In Scratch, one of the easiest ways to do an animation is to use a sprite that has several costumes. The Scratch Cat, if we go click on costumes, only has 2 costumes, so we could do some simple animation by switching back and forth between him. But we're going to use a sprite that has more costumes. I'm going to get rid of the cat by right-clicking on him and picking delete. Sometimes you have to wait a few seconds for that action to take place. Now I'm going to click on Choose Sprite from Library for a new sprite. I'm going to go under the theme of Music and Dance and pick D-Money Dance. And then click OK. It takes a few seconds sometimes for your sprite to come in. Here is our sprite, and if I go to Costumes, you'll see that there are several different costumes for this sprite, and they're all doing different kinds of dance moves. There's a couple different ways that we could do the animation. If I go to Scripts, we can have a little control. We could say wait, let's do 0.2 seconds, and then have him, and go to looks and say switch costume to, we'll switch to the B one, and we can repeat that, control 0.2 seconds, and then we could go to looks again and switch to the next costume. And if we wanted to test this out, we just click on the top block and it runs through. He waits 2 seconds, switches, waits 2 seconds, switches. This takes a little bit of time though, so we're not going to use this. If I want to get rid of this script, I can either just drag it off to the side and ignore it, or drag it over on this block palette and it'll disappear. Instead, we're going to use some other blocks to make this a little bit more efficient. We're going to use an event, the when green flag clicked, and under control this time we're going to put in a repeat, and there were about 9 costumes, but we can have it continually repeating. I'll put in 20 repeats. We'll put in our wait 1 second. We'll change that to 0.2 seconds. And then under looks, we'll just select next costume. This will cycle through the costumes, and when it gets to the end of one set of the costumes, it'll just continue. So we'll go ahead and click, and here he is doing his dance. Very simple and easy to do. If we wanted to augment this a little bit, we could add a sound. There's a dance celebration sound that's associated with this sprite. So we'll go back to Scripts, pick Sound, and we'll say Play Sound Dance Celebration. And we'll just pull it over here so that it nests in this area. And then we can play it. And you notice that it continued a little bit longer than music did, so we could play around with that and get that to play the exact amount of time that we wanted to. Let's say we wanted to have a different sprite in here. What we want to be careful of is not deleting this sprite just yet, even if we want to change him to another one. If we do delete this sprite, we lose the script that came with it. So I'm going to go under Edit and do Undelete right away to get him back. I'm going to add another sprite. I'm going to go to Music and Dance again, and I'll put in Juvenator and wait for her to come in. Kind of move these dancers around a little bit. You'll notice she doesn't have a script associated with her. When I click on her in the Sprite window, there is no script. There is for D-Money. If I want her to dance the same way, all I have to do is copy the script over, and I can do that by right-clicking on Duplicate and then drag that on top of her. Now when I click on Juvenator, she has the script too. So now when I click the green flag either here or here, it will start the scripts for both of these sprites at the same time. So let's see what that looks like. And let's just play around with changing the time, the number of repeats. I'll change it to 34 for Juvenator and then 34 for D-Money. We'll try it one more time. Let's see. You notice that only D-Money started moving when I clicked this flag over here. If I want both of them to start going at the same time, I have to use the project green flag instead of the separate one that's by their own script. So let me do that again with the green flag. So getting closer on that. If I wanted to, I could play around with that a little bit more. Last thing I'm going to show you under this animation is how to put a stage in the background so it'll look a little bit nicer. I'm going to click on Stage and then switch to Backdrops. And I'm going to choose a backdrop from the library. And I'll do an indoor backdrop, or I could go down to Music and Dance to pick one. I'll pick the party backdrop and say OK. And now I can move my sprites around if I want to, give them a little bit more room if they need it. Go back to scripts. And one thing that I can do here, they don't move too much when they're dancing, but sometimes when you're animating a sprite, you might want them to start in a certain position every time. So, well, I've got D-Money selected here. If I go to Motion, his coordinates are shown on the Go to X, Y block. So I'm just going to drag that up here under When Clicked. I'm going to do the same for Juvenator. I'm going to click on her sprite and her go to XY coordinates and put them up here, because I might want to play around with having them move a little bit back and forth too at some point, because that could add to the animation. So this is an overview of using animation with costumes in Sprite. Now I'm going to show you how to animate a sprite that doesn't have any costumes. First I'm going to delete Little Scratch Cat. Then I'm going to go to my new sprite from a library selection. I am going to make sure I'm in Vector, and I'm going to pick from Holiday. And I'm going to pick this snowman and say OK. When I go to costumes, you'll notice that this snowman only has one costume. But since he's a vector graphic, I'll be able to easily manipulate him to make different looks for him. And I want to animate him so it looks like he's walking. So I'm going to duplicate his costume. And with the second costume selected, I'm going to use the select tool, which is the arrow, and click and drag a box around the snowman. Then I'm going to come down and click on the ungroup tool. Once I do this, each part of the snowman is a separate item that I can manipulate. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see what I'm doing. I've selected his arm, one of his arms. There's a rotate button that I'm going to click on and drag to make it look like the arm is moved down a little bit. And I'll do the same thing with this one, move this one up. If I want to move it a little bit so it looks more natural, like it's coming out where it should, I can do that. And I'll do the same with the boots. I'll have the boots come down a little bit. Okay, now that I've made those changes, I'm going to duplicate that costume. And I'll do another manipulation. A little bit more rotation here. Move it down. A little bit more rotation here. Move that up. And then the same thing with the boots. Maybe move them back a little bit too. And one more. I duplicate. And then while that one is selected, I manipulate the parts that I want to have look like they're animated or moving. This is a fairly simple type of animation, but it'll work quite well. Okay, now I've got 4 costumes where I only had one before, so I'm going to go to the scripts. I'm going to start this with the event of when clicked. And what I want to do is repeat several times. I'm going to move the little guy over too. Move him over. I'm going to use my control. I'm going to repeat 20 times. Change the input to 20. I'll have him wait 0.5 seconds, half a second. Second here, 0.5. And I'll have him move 10 steps. And then I'll go under looks and pick next costume. Now all I have to do is click the green flag to start. And there's my snowman walking around. And if I wanted him to go farther, I could increase the number of repeats, or I could increase the number of steps. One thing that I'm going to add to this is it'd be nice to always have him start from the left. So I'm going to separate out these blocks. To separate the script, you just click on the block below where you want your separation. I'm going to place him in the spot where I want him to start every time. I'm going to go to motions and find the go to X, Y block, because it's going to show his current location. So I'm going to put that in there, join it together, and then I'll test it out. First time should be fine, moving across the screen. And I could stop this at any point. And now when I click again, he jumps back to the spot and starts over. Another way to make animations in Scratch is to draw your own sprite and the costumes for your sprite. For this example, I'm going to leave the cat on the screen. I'm going to go down to New Sprite and pick the icon for painting a new sprite. What I'm going to do is paint a Christmas tree and then have it decorate itself when it's animated. I'm going to go to vector mode. I'm going to use the line tool to make a triangle. As you can see, I've already got the color and line thickness selected here. So I'm going to click on line. I'm going to click my mouse button, hold it down, and drag to make one side of the triangle. Let up on the mouse. I'm going to hold the shift key so I can draw a straight line. Click, drag across, let go of the mouse and the shift key. Now I'm going to click and drag again to finish my triangle. And I can kind of see a little circle as the lines connect here. Then I'm going to click on the paint bucket, and I already have the green selected, so I'm going to click to paint the inside of the shape. Next, I'm going to use the stamp tool to duplicate this. So I click on the stamp tool, click on my triangle, and drag one down. Then I'm going to do that again. Click on the stamp tool. If I wanted to do lots of these, I could hold the shift down, click on the shape, and then drag it down. And now if I want to, I can resize the bottom one to make it a little bit bigger, resize the top one to make it a little bit smaller, and there I have my Christmas tree, except for the trunk. Now I'm going to go to rectangle, and I'm going to select brown color, and I want to make sure I have the filled rectangle selected. So now I can easily make a filled rectangle by clicking and dragging. And there's my tree. That's my first costume. I'm going to right click on that and pick duplicate. Now I'm going to add a couple of ornaments to this tree. Simple little circle shapes that are yellow. And again, to get a circle, I would hold the shift. So I'm going to put in on two shapes. And if I want them to be exactly the same size, I can use the duplicate tool. Stamp another one on. And then I'm going to do another costume by duplicating this one. So on this one, I'm going to continue with I'm going to add two more balls on here. So I'm going to hold the shift this time while I use the duplicate tool. And put one there and one there. And to get rid of that tool, I just click on my select tool. And let's do one more with more balls on it. I'm going to hold my duplicate tool again. Click on it, hold the shift, and put a couple more of these on the tree. There we go. And then click on my arrow to get rid of that. Now I'm going to duplicate this one, and I'm going to add a red garland that kind of wraps itself around the tree. So this time I'm going to use the pencil tool because I don't want it to be perfectly straight. I'm going to pick red and a thick color. So I'm going to have that one. I'm going to duplicate this and go back to the pencil tool. Add another one. Duplicate this one. And then go to the pencil tool and bring it around there. So now I have 7 costumes for my tree. I'm going to go back to scripts, and I'm going to move this tree over. If I want to show the first costume, I can go back to costumes and scroll up to costume 1. I'm going to move the cat down a little bit. What I'm going to do is have the cat say, let's decorate the tree, and then the tree will start decorating. So let's do the cat script first. We're going to go to events, when clicked, And the cat talking is actually under looks. There's a say, and you can change what it says and the amount of time it says it. I'm going to pull say hello for 2 seconds over and change it to say, let's decorate the tree. Now we'll do the script for the tree. So I have to select the tree down here. The event again that starts is going to be when the flag's clicked, but before it starts decorating we have to have it wait 2 seconds because that was how long the cat's message was going to be shown. So I'm going to wait 2 seconds. We have 7 costumes, so we're going to repeat 7 times. Going to wait about, let's wait half a second first to see how that looks. And then under looks, we're going to select next costume. And let's try our project out. Let's decorate the tree. And there's the tree decorated. And because we did 7, it went back all the way to the first one, which is what we kind of want it to do at the end. If we don't want it to go all the way back, then we can just change this. Repeat 6. Let's try that. That looks a little bit nicer. And then if we want to start always with a blank tree, because right now it's not going to be a blank tree right away, what we can do is put in a block that says switch costume to costume 1. That way it will always start off with costume 1. So let's try it one more time here. Now if we start again, it'll go back to a bare tree and then start decorating it. So this is a way to create your own sprite and costumes to make a simple animation in Scratch.